Have you ever wondered why some people seem to build wealth effortlessly while others work tirelessly for decades and still struggle financially? What if everything you've been taught about money, the very foundation of your financial beliefs, is actually designed to keep you trapped in a cycle of perpetual work? The answer might shock you. We've all heard the conventional wisdom: save every penny, cut back on expenses, and one day you'll be rich. But look around. How many people do you know who've actually saved their way to true wealth? Has this ever happened to you, feeling proud of your growing savings account while secretly wondering why financial freedom still seems so far away? The harsh truth is that the "save your way to wealth" narrative is perhaps the most dangerous financial lie ever sold to the working class. It's not just wrong, it's a deliberate system of control. While you diligently lock away your money, thinking you're being responsible, that capital sits stagnant, slowly dying from inflation and missed opportunity. But before we begin exploring the wealth-building strategies that Neville Goddard and other masters of prosperity understood intuitively, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will completely transform how you think about money. The wealthy operate with an entirely different playbook, one that's rarely taught in schools or passed down in typical families. The rich understand something fundamental. Money only multiplies when it moves. They don't hoard their dollars, they deploy them strategically. Every dollar becomes a soldier sent out to conquer more territory, to capture more resources, to build an empire. Meanwhile, those with a poverty mindset keep their money locked away in financial prisons called savings accounts, mistaking this stagnation for safety. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you've been raised to believe that frugality is the path to prosperity. The wealthy don't just have more money, they have a completely different relationship with it. They understand that money is merely a tool for transformation, not a treasure to be guarded. Think about this. What if your cautious financial habits, the ones you're most proud of, are actually guaranteeing your continued struggle? What if your fear of loss is precisely what's preventing your greatest gains? Now, let's pull back the curtain on the psychological warfare being waged for control of your financial future. The system doesn't want you to know this, but the difference between financial freedom and lifelong struggle isn't how much you earn. It's how you deploy what you have. If you want more insights on wealth creation and strategic money deployment, hit that subscribe button now. I'm constantly sharing principles that the financial system doesn't want you to know. The truth is, the system conditions you to fear loss from an early age. Think about how often you've been told to be careful with money, to play it safe, to avoid risks. These warnings seem wise, but they're actually the very language of limitation. It's this deeply ingrained fear that keeps most people financially stagnant, making decisions from a place of scarcity rather than abundance. The master mindset operates on an entirely different frequency. Rather than fearing loss, it transforms loss into a strategic tool. Think about this revelation. Every significant wealth-building opportunity requires you to release something first. There's a profound hidden truth here. You must be willing to exchange short-term comfort for long-term control. This isn't about reckless spending or gambling. It's about making calculated decisions with your resources. The wealthy understand this intuitively. They recognize that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to release your grip on what you have today to secure what you truly want tomorrow. This mindset transformation is what separates those who create lasting impact from those who merely survive financially. Have you ever wondered why billionaires continue investing millions into new businesses, networks, and influence campaigns when they already have more money than they could spend in several lifetimes? The journey of understanding this paradox reveals something profound about wealth creation that few ever grasp. These ultra-wealthy individuals aren't driven by simple greed, as many assume. They've discovered a fundamental principle that governs all forms of growth. In the realm of wealth, stillness equals death, and motion equals life. Every living system in nature must grow or die. There is no stable equilibrium. Your financial life follows the exact same principle. When money sits idle, it doesn't just pause, it actively decays. Inflation silently eats away at its value. Opportunities pass by without being seized. While your dollars sit dormant, the world keeps moving, and your relative position in it weakens. The wealthy understand this viscerally, which is why they keep their capital in constant strategic motion. Behind the scenes of every great fortune is this realization. The moment you stop deploying your resources strategically is the moment your financial power begins to erode. This isn't just about money, it's about understanding the natural laws that govern all forms of power and influence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how the wealthy look at spending in a completely different way than the average person. While most see spending as loss, the financially powerful see it as leverage, a critical distinction that changes everything about how money flows through your life. As we explore these concepts, I'd love to hear your perspective on this mindset shift. Write in the comments, motion creates money, if this perspective on strategic deployment versus hoarding resonates with you. Let's talk about the profound revelation that changed everything about how I view money. The safety we believe we're creating when we save is largely an illusion, a comforting mirage that disappears upon closer inspection. Think about this hidden truth. When you place your money in a typical savings account earning 0.5% while inflation runs at 3 to 7%, you're not preserving wealth, you're guaranteeing its slow destruction. This isn't pessimism, it's simple mathematics. Your purchasing power diminishes with each passing day. That $10,000 you've diligently saved might still show the same number on your account statement a year later, but its real-world value has been silently eroded. The journey toward financial freedom cannot be built on a foundation that's constantly crumbling beneath your feet. But the more insidious cost isn't even inflation. It's the paralysis that comes from fear. When your primary financial strategy becomes protection rather than production, you freeze in place while opportunities flow past you. This stagnation has a price tag far greater than most realize. The cost of inaction often exceeds the cost of a wrong action because wrong actions can be corrected, but time lost is gone forever. The transformation begins when you realize money's true nature. Money, at its core, resembles blood in the human body. Its purpose and power are activated through circulation, not storage. Just as blood carries oxygen and nutrients to cells when flowing and causes disease when stagnant, money delivers value only when it moves. This perspective shift changes everything. Capital isn't designed for stagnation, it's designed for movement. Its fundamental nature is revealed only through deliberate circulation, through strategic risks and calculated opportunities. When Neville Goddard spoke about the power of imagination in creating reality, he was touching on this same principle. The static represents death, while motion represents life. Think of your capital as water. Contained and stationary, water becomes stale and toxic over time. But flowing water, water in motion, purifies itself, generates power, and creates life wherever it travels. The wealthy have internalized this principle so deeply that it guides their every financial decision. The most successful investors and business builders I know don't ask, "How can I keep what I have?" They ask, how can I circulate what I have to create more value? This subtle distinction represents the dividing line between the financially trapped and the financially free. When you begin operating from this understanding, money decisions that once seemed risky suddenly make perfect sense. Investments in your skills, your network, your systems, and your capabilities aren't expenses. They're the most reliable way to put your money into productive motion. Now, I want to explore the psychological shift that happens when you stop viewing yourself as a money protector and start seeing yourself as a money director, actively choreographing its movement toward growth opportunities. This mindset shift might be the single most important factor in financial transformation. If you've been sensing that your cautious approach to money might actually be holding you back rather than protecting you, type "money in motion" in the comments below. The psychological blueprint that separates the wealthy from everyone else is far more profound than most realize. Here's a revelation that changed everything for me. Poor people protect their money, while rich people protect their position. This distinction might seem subtle at first glance, but it represents entirely different universes of wealth creation. When you operate from a scarcity mindset, your primary focus becomes guarding every dollar as if it's your last. Your financial decisions center around questions like, how can I avoid losing this? Or how can I spend less? This protective stance feels prudent, but it's actually a prison that keeps you trapped in a perpetual state of financial defense. In stark contrast, those who build significant wealth focus on protecting and advancing their strategic position in the marketplace. They ask entirely different questions. How can I leverage this capital to strengthen my position? Or what capabilities will give me an advantage? This offensive stance prioritizes momentum over safety, advancement over preservation. Think about this insight for a moment. Once you lose your position in the market, your skills, your network, your relevance, your momentum, your money won't save you. You'll always be one disruption away from starting over. This is why the wealthy seem almost careless with spending in certain areas while being extremely strategic in others. They're not protecting dollars. They're protecting and enhancing their capacity to generate more. The journey to financial freedom requires honest self-reflection. When presented with extra capital, what's your instinctive response? Most people gravitate toward immediate comfort, the new gadget, the upgraded car, the luxury vacation, choices that provide a brief emotional high but evaporate quickly, leaving nothing of lasting value behind. This pattern represents a profound misalignment between actions and aspirations. Everyone wants financial freedom, yet most people's spending habits create financial imprisonment instead. Behind the scenes of every purchase decision is a crucial choice most never consciously make. Are you buying temporary pleasure or enduring power? The transformation begins when you start viewing every dollar as a seed rather than a prize. Seeds aren't valuable for what they are, but for what they can become when properly planted and cultivated. Those who understand this principle invest systematically in skills, relationships, systems, and tools that multiply their earning capacity rather than satisfying momentary desires. I watched this principle unfold dramatically with two friends who each received $5,000 unexpectedly. The first immediately upgraded his entertainment system and took a weekend trip. The second invested in a specialized certification and industry conference. 6 months later, the first had nothing but fading memories, while the second had leveraged those connections and skills into a 40% income increase. Same amount, radically different trajectories. The impact of this mindset shift extends far beyond your bank account. It fundamentally changes how you evaluate every opportunity, relationship, and resource in your life. You begin seeing potential leverage where others see only price tags. Let's explore how this shift in perspective transforms not just how you spend, but how you earn. because the wealthy understand something crucial about the relationship between value creation and wealth accumulation that most people never grasp. If this distinction between protecting money and protecting position has sparked a realization for you, write "position over pennies" in the comments below. Here's a breakthrough realization that completely transformed my understanding of wealth creation. Your financial destiny isn't determined by your income, it's determined by what you do with that income. This revelation cuts against everything most of us have been taught. We've been conditioned to believe that if we could just earn more, get that raise, land that promotion, find that better paying job, then our financial struggles would finally end. But the evidence tells a different story. Look around and you'll see people earning six figures who still live paycheck to paycheck, while others earning modest incomes build substantial wealth over time. The decisive factor isn't the size of your paycheck, it's the strategic deployment of whatever capital flows through your hands, regardless of the amount. Subscribe to continue this journey of financial transformation with me. Every video reveals another piece of the wealth-building puzzle that most will never discover. Think about this hidden truth. Many lottery winners end up broke within 5 years despite receiving millions, while immigrants arrive with nothing and build generational wealth within a decade. The difference isn't luck or circumstance, it's how they direct the flow of their capital. The wealthy treat every dollar as a seed to be planted in fertile soil, not as a trophy to be displayed or consumed. This fundamental principle explains why two people can earn identical incomes, yet arrive at completely different financial destinations. One deploys capital into appreciating assets and capability-building investments. The other funnels money into depreciating possessions and fleeting experiences. Same starting point, radically different outcomes. The journey toward financial freedom demands another crucial insight. The economic ecosystem systematically rewards calculated risk-taking, not cautious preservation. This might feel counterintuitive, even uncomfortable, especially if you were raised to believe that safety and security should be your primary financial values. But look beneath the surface of every significant fortune, and you'll discover the same pattern: decisive action in the face of uncertainty. The system is designed to channel resources toward those willing to step into calculated risk. Every meaningful financial opportunity involves stepping beyond the boundaries of absolute certainty. This doesn't mean reckless gambling or impulsive decisions. There's a profound difference between calculated risks and blind leaps. Calculated risks are researched, measured, and taken with clear-eyed awareness of both potential downsides and upsides. They're strategic moves that align with your strengths and knowledge base. Behind the scenes of successful wealth creation is this consistent behavior pattern, the ability to move forward decisively when others become paralyzed by uncertainty. While most wait for perfect conditions that never arrive, the financially successful understand that imperfect action outperforms perfect hesitation every single time. I witnessed this mindset difference dramatically when observing two entrepreneurs facing similar market opportunities. One spent months gathering more data, refining plans, and waiting for ideal conditions. The other moved quickly with 80% certainty, launching an imperfect offering that evolved through real feedback. By the time the cautious founder finally launched, the market window had narrowed significantly, and the bold mover had already established market position. Now I want to explore an equally powerful distinction that shapes wealth trajectories: the difference between spending to look rich versus spending to become richer. This subtle shift in intention creates an entirely different relationship with money that accelerates wealth creation. If you're realizing that your relationship with risk might be holding back your financial growth, write "calculated courage" in the comments below. One of the most revealing patterns I've observed across years of studying wealth creation is this striking contrast. The poor spend to look rich, while the rich spend to become richer. This distinction isn't just about money, it's a profound window into underlying mindsets that create entirely different financial trajectories. Look around at the consumption patterns in your community. You'll notice many people investing heavily in the symbols of wealth. Luxury cars, designer clothes, lavish vacations, all carefully curated for social media. These purchases aren't just random acts of consumption, they're deliberate attempts to project an image of success to the world. Behind this behavior is a deep psychological need for external validation, for others to perceive prosperity even when the financial foundation is fragile. The transformation happens when you realize that this approach depletes resources rather than multiplying them. Every dollar channeled toward status symbols is a dollar that cannot work toward building actual wealth. It's like trying to build a skyscraper by focusing entirely on the decorative facade while neglecting the structural foundation. In stark contrast, those who build sustainable wealth often maintain surprisingly modest external appearances while directing their capital toward capability expansion. They invest systematically in assets that appreciate, skills that compound, and relationships that open doors. Their spending decisions consistently answer one question: will this make me more valuable or capable tomorrow than I am today? This fundamental difference explains why some people seem to accelerate financially over time, while others remain stuck despite superficial appearances of success. One approach creates an upward spiral of expanding capabilities and opportunities. The other creates a downward spiral of diminishing resources and growing pressure to maintain appearances. Now, let me share another revelation that deepened my understanding of wealth psychology. The affluent approach money with a level of strategic coldness that might initially seem jarring. For those with a wealth mindset, money isn't a passive resource to be protected, it's an active force to be deployed with precision and purpose. The wealthy treat every dollar as a weapon in their arsenal, strategically investing to eliminate vulnerabilities and secure advantages. They systematically identify weak points in their financial fortress, gaps in knowledge, limitations in network, inefficiencies in systems, and deploy capital specifically to eliminate these weaknesses. This mindset creates a ruthless clarity about spending decisions. Rather than emotional or impulsive, purchasing every expenditure is evaluated through the lens of strategic advantage. They ask, does this remove an obstacle? Does this strengthen my position? Does this give me greater control over my future? I witnessed this principle in action through a friend who built a 7-figure business. While competitors purchased flashy offices and company cars, he invested heavily in automated systems and specialized talent that his industry typically couldn't access. These decisions looked extravagant to outsiders. Why spend so much on custom software or executive-level talent? But each investment systematically eliminated vulnerabilities while creating advantages that competitors couldn't easily replicate. This approach to deploying capital extends beyond business into personal finance. The financially sophisticated systematically invest in health, time leverage, knowledge, and strategic relationships, recognizing that control over these domains creates exponential returns over time. Let's examine another critical insight that separates the financially stagnant from the financially free: the relationship between opportunity, movement, and timing. Understanding this dynamic completely reshapes how you perceive and respond to the possibilities around you. If you recognize that your spending patterns might be more focused on appearances than actual capability building, type substance over status in the comments below. The economic landscape reveals a truth that Neville Goddard understood deeply. Opportunities are not static entities patiently waiting for your courage to build. They are living, breathing moments that appear briefly and then vanish. The marketplace operates with its own rhythm and timeline, completely indifferent to your readiness or hesitation. This revelation fundamentally transforms how you interact with potential pathways to growth. Goddard would describe hesitation as the death of fortune, a powerful insight that cuts to the core of why some people consistently find themselves surrounded by opportunity, while others claim the world never gives them a chance. The difference isn't luck or privilege, it's decisiveness in the face of uncertainty. Those who move with conviction capture possibilities that have already disappeared for the hesitant. Think about your own journey for a moment. How many times have you spotted an opportunity, felt that initial spark of excitement, and then allowed doubt to creep in? You tell yourself you'll research more, prepare better, wait for the perfect moment, and before you know it, the window has closed. Someone else has stepped through the door that was momentarily open to you. The hidden truth behind every major success story isn't just vision or intelligence. It's speed of implementation. Watch closely, and you'll notice that the financially successful don't necessarily have better ideas. They simply act on their ideas with remarkable speed. They understand that in a world of abundant opportunities, execution velocity often matters more than perfection. This mindset shift represents a profound transformation in how you perceive risk and reward. Most people have been conditioned to view careful analysis and extended deliberation as virtues. But when taken to extremes, these seemingly prudent habits become invisible barriers to advancement. The market rewards those who can make good decisions quickly over those who make perfect decisions slowly. Every moment you spend in hesitation creates a vacuum that someone else's courage will fill. This is perhaps the most sobering realization on the journey to financial freedom. By playing it safe, you're essentially allowing others to purchase your future with their boldness. The opportunities you avoid out of fear don't simply wait for you to become comfortable. They become someone else's foundation for growth. I witnessed this principle unfold dramatically when two friends discovered the same emerging market trend. Simultaneously, one spent weeks analyzing, planning, and waiting for certainty. The other launched an imperfect solution within days. By the time the cautious friend felt ready to act, his bold counterpart had already established market position, built relationships with key players, and created momentum that proved impossible to overcome. Same opportunity, radically different outcomes based solely on response time. The impact of this pattern extends far beyond a single missed chance. Over time, it creates divergent life trajectories. Those who consistently move quickly build compounding advantages. Each opportunity seized creates leverage for the next, creating an acceleration effect that looks like luck to outside observers. Now I want to explore a question that completely shifts how you think about spending decisions. A mental framework that the wealthy use instinctively when evaluating where to direct their resources. This single question, when applied consistently, can transform your relationship with money overnight. If you've recognized how hesitation has cost you opportunities in the past, type decisive action in the comments below. Every financial decision you make is far more significant than a simple transaction. It's a declaration, a vote cast for the kind of future you're creating. This revelation transforms how you view the seemingly small choices you make with your money each day. Your spending patterns create a detailed map of your values, priorities, and the vision you hold for your life, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. When you examine your bank statements and credit card bills, you're looking at more than just numbers. You're seeing a blueprint of the life you're building. Each purchase represents a choice between reinforcing your current limitations or expanding your future capabilities. The coffee shop expenditures, the streaming subscriptions, the impulse buys, all of these seemingly insignificant decisions accumulate to create your financial reality. The wealthy approach this understanding with almost surgical precision. They recognize that every dollar directed toward distractions or temporary pleasures is a dollar that cannot work toward creating leverage and opportunity. Their spending patterns reflect this awareness, systematically channeling resources toward growth rather than momentary satisfaction. This doesn't mean living a joyless existence. It means being intensely deliberate about where your resources flow. Behind the scenes of this decision-making process lies another profound distinction that separates the financially free from the financially trapped. The poor think in terms of price, while the rich think in terms of cost. This perspective shift completely transforms the evaluation framework for every financial choice. When you think in price, you're focused exclusively on what you pay now, the immediate outlay of cash required for a purchase. This short-term thinking creates a natural bias toward choosing the cheapest option or avoiding expenditure altogether. It feels prudent in the moment, but often leads to greater expenses over time. The wealthy operate with a completely different calculus. They think in terms of cost, what they'll lose later if they don't act now. This forward-thinking approach factors in opportunity costs, long-term consequences, and the compounding effects of decisions. They ask, what will it cost me if I stay the same, rather than, how much do I have to spend? This mindset revolution transforms seemingly expensive investments into obvious choices. A $2,000 course that could double your income. The price-minded see an unaffordable luxury. The cost-minded see an inevitable investment with a clear return. A $5,000 conference that connects you with industry leaders. The price-minded see an extravagance. The cost-minded see the potential million-dollar relationships they'll miss by not attending. I've observed this distinction play out dramatically. In business contexts, one entrepreneur refused to hire capable support staff because the monthly expense seemed too high. Meanwhile, a competitor invested heavily in a team that freed the founder to focus entirely on high-leverage activities. 5 years later, the gap between their businesses had become an unbridgeable chasm, all stemming from this fundamental difference in decision-making framework. This perspective shift doesn't just apply to major financial decisions. It transforms everyday choices as well. The wealthy understand that time is their most precious resource, so they evaluate purchases not just by dollar amount, but by the freedom and focus each decision either creates or constrains. Let's explore how this mindset extends beyond individual decisions into broader strategic patterns that create sustainable wealth acceleration. The wealthy deploy a powerful principle that most never grasp: the concept of leverage and how it transforms linear effort into exponential results. If you're realizing that your decision-making has been primarily price-focused rather than cost-focused, write "future costs matter" in the comments below. Let's address a truth that might feel uncomfortable at first. The wealth game isn't designed to be fair, gentle, or forgiving. It operates according to principles that are often unspoken but ruthlessly consistent. The marketplace doesn't reward good intentions, hard work, or moral virtue in isolation. It systematically channels resources toward those who understand and apply the mechanics of motion, leverage, and timing. This revelation can be jarring if you've been raised to believe that financial success comes primarily through diligence and patience. The reality is far more complex and strategic. The economic ecosystem responds to specific behaviors and decisions with almost mathematical precision. It's not personal, it's structural. Those who build significant wealth grasp this fundamental truth. Prosperity follows. Patterns. The financially successful aren't just luckier or more privileged. They're playing by different rules because they understand the underlying dynamics that govern wealth creation. They recognize that wealth flows toward those who master strategic timing, who apply leverage rather than just effort, and who maintain constant forward momentum. Think about the transformation that happens when you stop viewing the economic system as capricious or unfair and start seeing it as predictable in its rewards and punishments. This shift in perspective doesn't just change how you feel about money, it changes how you interact with every financial opportunity. You begin to align your actions with the rules of the game rather than wishing the game had different rules. Now here's a sobering insight that completely shifted my understanding of banking and financial institutions. If you're not actively using your money to build power and position for yourself, someone else is using your money to increase their power. In the financial ecosystem, capital never truly sits dormant. It's always working for someone. That money you've diligently saved in your bank account, the bank isn't simply storing it in a vault. They're deploying it, lending it out, investing it, using it to generate profits for their shareholders. They're paying you 0.5% interest while earning 5 to 20% on the same capital. The gap between what they pay you and what they earn is how banking empires are built, using your money. This revelation doesn't mean banks are evil. They're simply operating according to their design. But it should prompt a profound reconsideration of your relationship with financial institutions. When you surrender your capital to others without understanding how it's being used, you're unknowingly funding someone else's empire building rather than your own. The journey toward financial sovereignty begins with this understanding. Every dollar you control is a unit of potential power. You can deploy that power yourself toward building your own capabilities and positions, or you can surrender that power to institutions that will use it for their advancement, not yours. I watched this principle unfold dramatically with two friends who each had $25,000 to deploy. One placed it in a high-yield savings account, feeling secure in his prudent decision. The other invested in developing a specialized skill and building a small business around it. 5 years later, the saver had accumulated perhaps an additional $2,000 in interest, while the investor had parlayed his initial capital into a 6-figure annual income stream. Now I want to explore how the wealthy use their understanding of these principles to build what Neville Goddard might have called empires of imagination, futures they envision and then systematically construct through strategic resource deployment. If you're recognizing how your capital might be working harder for others than it is for you, write "my money, my power" in the comments. Let me pull back the curtain on something most financial institutions hope you never fully grasp. The banking system you trust with your hard-earned money isn't designed to help you build wealth. It's designed to extract value from your capital to build their wealth. When you deposit your savings into a bank account, that money doesn't simply sit there waiting for you. It becomes fuel for the bank's profit engine. Banks take the money you've entrusted to them and immediately put it to work, lending it out at interest rates far higher than what they pay you. While they might give you 0.5% interest on your savings, they're simultaneously lending that same money out at 5%, 10%, or even 20% for credit cards and certain loans. This massive spread between what they pay you and what they earn using your money is how banking fortunes are built. Meanwhile, as this wealth transfer quietly occurs, another invisible force is simultaneously eroding your financial position: inflation. With each passing month, the purchasing power of your saved dollars diminishes. That $10,000 that could have bought a used car today might only purchase a fraction of that same vehicle in 5 years. This creates a devastating double penalty for the passive saver. Your capital is simultaneously being used to enrich others while losing its own intrinsic value. The revelation that transforms financial thinking is recognizing this isn't a conspiracy. It's simply how the system is structured. Banks aren't evil. They're simply operating according to their design and incentives. The question becomes, once you understand this dynamic, will you continue playing by rules designed for you to lose, or will you adopt the strategies used by those who win within this same system? This brings us to a profound insight about wealth creation that Neville Goddard would have recognized immediately. Every significant financial empire in history began with decisions that appeared reckless or irrational to conventional observers of their time. The journeys of the most successful wealth creators consistently feature pivotal moments where they stepped beyond conventional thinking into territory that seemed dangerous to the average person. Steve Jobs mortgaging everything to build a computer no one had asked for. Elon Musk pouring his entire PayPal fortune into space rockets and electric cars when both seemed like fantasy. Warren Buffett investing almost his entire net worth into a struggling textile company named Berkshire Hathaway. At the time, each of these decisions appeared foolhardy to conventional wisdom. What separates these visionaries from the masses isn't recklessness. It's a fundamentally different perception of risk and opportunity. They possess the ability to see pathways and connections invisible to those trapped in conventional thinking patterns. What looks like dangerous risk-taking to the outside observer is actually calculated strategic vision to the architect of these decisions. The transformation happens when you begin to recognize that your own financial breakthrough might require similarly bold moves. Decisions that might appear irrational to friends and family still operating with conventional financial wisdom. This doesn't mean blind risk-taking or gambling. It means developing the discernment to distinguish between truly reckless moves and calculated risks that others simply lack the vision to understand. Now I want to explore a critical distinction that completely changes how you evaluate financial decisions: the difference between spending and investing, two concepts that most people mistakenly treat as interchangeable. If you've realized that the conventional banking system might be working against your wealth-building goals, write "Banking Awakening" in the comments below. Here's a revelation that completely transformed how I view financial decisions. The enemy of wealth creation isn't spending, it's spending without strategic purpose. Most people have been conditioned to view all expenditures as fundamentally negative, as drains on their resources that should be minimized whenever possible. This perspective creates a scarcity mindset that actually inhibits financial growth rather than accelerating it. The breakthrough comes when you recognize that expenditure itself isn't inherently problematic. The real issue is deploying capital without clear strategic intention or understanding of the expected return. When you spend reactively, emotionally, or habitually, you're essentially shooting financial arrows blindfolded, hoping they land somewhere valuable. The wealthy take a fundamentally different approach. They deploy resources with surgical precision, always with a clear understanding of the strategic objective behind each dollar spent. This mindset shift completely reframes how you evaluate financial decisions. Instead of asking, "How can I spend less?" you begin asking, "How can I spend more?" Strategically, this isn't about increasing consumption, it's about increasing intention. Every dollar deployed should have a clear purpose: building capability, creating leverage, strengthening position, or eliminating obstacles to progress. Behind the scenes of every significant fortune is this consistent pattern: disciplined, strategic capital deployment rather than emotional or impulsive spending. The wealthy develop almost intuitive clarity about the difference between expenditures that create future value and those that simply create momentary pleasure. They understand that how you channel your resources determines whether your financial power expands or contracts over time. The journey toward financial freedom reveals another profound truth that Neville Goddard would have recognized instantly. Money in motion builds momentum. Momentum creates opportunity, and seized opportunity builds power. This cascade effect explains why wealth tends to accelerate once it passes certain thresholds. It's not just mathematical compounding, it's strategic compounding. When you begin deploying capital strategically, you create a self-reinforcing cycle that magnifies your advantages over time. Each well-placed investment generates returns that provide more capital for additional investments. Each capability you develop opens doors to opportunities previously invisible or inaccessible. Each position you secure creates leverage that attracts more opportunities with less effort. This momentum effect transforms the very landscape you operate in. While most people face constant resistance and struggle in their financial lives, those who create this positive cycle find that opportunities begin seeking them out rather than the other way around. It's as if the financial universe begins conspiring in their favor, though the reality is simply that they've aligned themselves with fundamental principles that govern how wealth flows. I witnessed this transformation with a client who shifted from random emotional spending to strategic capital deployment. Within 3 years, the change in his opportunity landscape was dramatic. He wasn't just earning more, he was being presented with possibilities that would have been unimaginable before. His strategic deployment of resources had created a momentum that was now working for him rather than against him. Now I want to explore the core principles that can accelerate this momentum effect in your own financial life. The first principle centers on a fundamental shift in how you view the purpose of spending, capability building versus comfort seeking. If you're beginning to recognize how strategic deployment of your resources could create powerful momentum in your life, write strategic momentum in the comments below. Let me share a core principle that completely transformed my understanding of wealth creation. The rich buy capability, while the poor buy comfort. This fundamental difference in spending patterns creates entirely different financial trajectories that compound over decades. One path leads to expanding potential and growing opportunity. The other creates momentary emotional satisfaction that quickly fades, leaving nothing of lasting value behind. Think about your own spending patterns for a moment. When extra money flows into your life, a bonus, a tax refund, an unexpected windfall, what's your instinctive response? Most people immediately channel those resources toward comfort enhancement. The newer car, the nicer vacation, the upgraded home furnishings. These purchases provide a brief dopamine hit of satisfaction, but leave no lasting impact on your ability to create wealth. The wealthy approach these same decisions with a fundamentally different framework. They systematically direct their resources toward capability expansion, skills that increase their value, tools that multiply their output, relationships that open doors, knowledge that reveals opportunities invisible to others. They understand that true financial liberation comes not from what you consume, but from what you can create. This revelation transforms how you evaluate every spending decision. Instead of asking, "Will this make me happy?" you begin asking, "Will this make me more capable?" This shift doesn't mean living a joyless existence focused solely on productivity. It means recognizing that the deepest, most sustainable form of satisfaction comes from growing your capacity to contribute, create, and capture value in the marketplace. Behind the scenes of every significant fortune is this consistent pattern, systematic investment in capabilities that compound over time. Warren Buffett didn't become a legendary investor by accident. He invested thousands of hours and dollars in developing his analytical abilities and financial understanding. Sarah Blakely didn't build Spanx into a billion-dollar brand through luck. She systematically developed her product design, marketing, and business capabilities through constant reinvestment. The journey toward financial freedom reveals another profound insight that transforms spending decisions. Every dollar you deploy should increase your ability to earn more later. This is how empires, both personal and corporate, are built. Strategic spending focuses not on immediate consumption, but on capability multiplication, creating conditions for increased future earnings rather than diminished resources. This mindset shift creates an entirely different relationship with money. Rather than seeing each dollar as a terminal resource to be consumed once and forever gone, you begin viewing it as a seed that, when planted in fertile soil, can grow into an entire orchard. The question becomes not, what can I get for this dollar today, but what can this dollar generate for me tomorrow and every day after? I witnessed this transformation with a friend who inherited $25,000, while others urged him to upgrade his car or take a luxury vacation. He instead invested in an intensive coding bootcamp and some specialized equipment. Within 6 months, he had leveraged these new capabilities into a position that doubled his previous salary. The capability investment paid for itself many times over, while creating ongoing returns that a vacation or car never could. Now I want to explore another powerful insight about strategic spending: the value of investing in knowledge and access to rooms that filter out noise and accelerate your progress. If you're recognizing how shifting your spending from comfort to capability could transform your financial trajectory, write "capability first" in the comments below. Let me share something that completely shifted my perspective on financial growth. Consider this scenario. You manage to save $1,000 after months of careful budgeting. The conventional mindset celebrates this achievement. You've been disciplined and responsible. But here's the revelation that transformed my understanding of wealth creation. That same $1,000 invested in the right skill acquisition could generate $10,000 monthly for years or even decades to come. This isn't hypothetical. I've witnessed this transformation repeatedly. A friend invested $800 in a specialized digital marketing course rather than adding it to his savings. Within 3 months, he had secured clients paying him $3,000 monthly for his new expertise. The math is staggering when you extend this over years. The momentary satisfaction of seeing your savings account grow by $1,000 pales in comparison to the exponential returns possible through strategic capability investment. This insight cuts against everything we've been conditioned to believe about financial responsibility. We're taught that saving is virtuous, while spending on ourselves is indulgent, but this framework completely misses the profound difference between consumption spending and capability investment. One diminishes your resources permanently, the other multiplies your earning power indefinitely. The wealthy understand this distinction intuitively. They recognize that certain investments create returns that far outpace any savings account or traditional investment vehicle. That's why they willingly spend thousands to learn directly from those already succeeding at what they want to accomplish. They understand a fundamental truth about knowledge acquisition. Proximity accelerates learning exponentially. Behind the scenes of wealth creation is this consistent pattern of strategic knowledge acquisition. The financially successful don't just seek information, they seek transformation through immersion in environments designed to accelerate growth. They pay premium prices for mentorship programs, mastermind groups, and high-level conferences, not because they're wasteful, but because they understand the incalculable value of filtered information and curated relationships. Consider the revelation that changed my journey. Information is abundant, but wisdom is rare. In the age of information overload, the most precious resource isn't data, it's clarity and discernment. When you gain access to rooms that filter out noise and connect you with those already achieving what you desire, you're not just buying information, you're buying years of trial and error compressed into days. You're buying clarity that would otherwise take decades to develop independently. I witnessed this principle in action when a struggling entrepreneur invested $5,000, money he could barely afford, to join an exclusive industry mastermind. The connections he made in that environment led to partnerships that increased his business tenfold within a year. What appeared to be an extravagant expense was actually the most profitable investment he ever made. The transformation happens when you recognize that wisdom transfer doesn't occur through casual interaction or free content consumption. It happens through deliberate immersion in environments where success leaves clues and where those who have already walked the path can illuminate blind spots you don't even know you have. Now I want to explore another dimension of strategic investment that the wealthy understand intuitively: the relationship between time and money, and why free information often carries the highest price tag of all. If this perspective on investing in knowledge and strategic relationships has resonated with you, write "wisdom investment" in the comments below. Here's a revelation that fundamentally changed how I approach learning and growth. Free information isn't actually free. It costs you years of your life. This insight completely transforms how you evaluate investments in knowledge and skill development. Most people instinctively seek free resources when learning something new: free YouTube videos, free blog posts, free podcasts. This approach seems prudent financially, but it overlooks the most precious currency we possess: time. The hidden truth behind knowledge acquisition is that information gathering isn't linear, it's exponential when properly structured. Free resources, while valuable, typically lack the coherent, proven framework that accelerates understanding. Instead, you're piecing together fragments from countless sources, trying to create a complete picture without knowing what pieces are missing or even what the finished puzzle should look like. This scattered approach creates an invisible tax on your growth, the extended timeline required to achieve mastery. Meanwhile, strategic investment in structured learning from proven sources doesn't just provide information, it provides transformation through time compression. What might take 5 years to learn through random free resources can often be condensed into months or even weeks through proper guidance and structured learning paths. Neville Goddard understood this principle intimately. He recognized that the path to manifestation requires not just knowledge, but applied wisdom in the right sequence. Similarly, your journey to financial freedom demands not just information accumulation, but strategic application of proven principles in the correct order, something rarely available through fragmented free resources. I witnessed this principle dramatically with 2 entrepreneurs learning the same skill. One refused to invest in structured training, cobbling together free YouTube tutorials. The other invested $2,000 in a comprehensive program taught by an industry leader. 6 months later, the difference was striking. The free learner was still struggling with fundamentals, while the investor had implemented systems generating consistent revenue. The free approach actually carried a massive hidden cost, the opportunity cost of delayed implementation and results. This insight reveals a profound truth about wealth psychology. Being cheap with money makes you expensive with time. When you hesitate to invest in accelerated learning or growth opportunities, you're not actually saving resources. You're simply shifting the cost from one currency, money, to another, far more precious and irreplaceable currency: time. Consider this perspective shift. Time isn't just money. Time is life itself, the one resource you can never recover or replenish. Every month spent struggling to figure something out that you could have learned quickly through proper investment represents life energy that could have been directed toward creating value, building relationships, or enjoying the fruits of your success. The wealthy understand this equation intuitively. They recognize that the highest leverage investment they can make is in time compression, paying to collapse learning curves, eliminate trial and error, and accelerate results. This isn't reckless spending, it's strategic life energy management. The transformation happens when you stop evaluating knowledge investments solely by their dollar cost and start calculating their true return on investment in terms of time saved, opportunities accessed, and suffering avoided. This shift fundamentally changes what appears expensive versus what represents extraordinary value. Now, I want to explore how this time value principle extends beyond knowledge acquisition into another dimension. The wealthy understand deeply the power of timing and the critical nature of decisive action in capturing fleeting opportunities. If you're recognizing how being overly frugal with money investments might actually be costing you your most precious resource, write "time millionaire" in the comments below. Neville Goddard had a profound understanding of opportunity that applies perfectly to wealth creation. He recognized that opportunities aren't static fixtures in our lives. They're living energies with natural life cycles. Like fruit hanging on a tree, they ripen to a perfect moment of potential, but if left unpicked, they inevitably decay and fall to the ground. This natural law operates, whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we're prepared or not, whether we feel ready or not. The wealthy have internalized this wisdom so deeply that it manifests as an almost instinctive ability to recognize and seize fleeting moments of opportunity. They understand that timing isn't just one factor in success, it's often the determining factor. This explains why they sometimes appear to make decisions with surprising speed, moving forward while others are still analyzing and deliberating. They're not being reckless, they're respecting the perishable nature of opportunity. I've observed this principle at work repeatedly in business and investing contexts. Markets shift, technologies emerge, consumer behaviors change, and in these transition moments, extraordinary opportunities briefly appear. Those who recognize and act during these windows create fortunes, while those who hesitate find themselves facing closed doors, wondering what might have been. This revelation transforms how you interact with potential opportunities in your own life. When you truly understand that indecision itself is a decision to let opportunity decay, you begin approaching possibilities with a completely different energy. You recognize that perfect information is rarely available and that waiting for absolute certainty often means missing the moment entirely. The catalyst for this transformation isn't reckless impulsivity, but rather a profound shift in your decision-making framework. Instead of requiring certainty before action, you develop the capacity to act decisively with incomplete information, trusting your ability to adapt and refine as you progress. This is the essence of what Goddard would describe as faith in action, moving forward not with blind hope, but with clear intention and adaptability. Now let me share a filter question that completely transformed my approach to financial decisions and can do the same for you. Does this make me more capable or more comfortable? This single question, applied consistently to your spending choices, creates an immediate clarity that cuts through emotional and impulsive purchasing patterns. This filter forces you to confront the fundamental purpose behind each expenditure. Are you buying temporary comfort and distraction, or are you investing in expanded capabilities and opportunities? The question doesn't condemn all comfort spending. Occasional rejuvenation is necessary, but it creates awareness about the primary direction of your financial energy. What makes this filter so powerful is its simplicity. In moments of financial decision-making, our minds can become clouded by marketing messages, social pressures, and emotional impulses. This single question cuts through that noise, bringing immediate clarity about whether a purchase aligns with your long-term vision or merely satisfies a temporary desire. I applied this filter to my spending for just 1 month and was shocked by the patterns it revealed. Nearly 70% of my discretionary spending was directed toward comfort and convenience rather than capability expansion. That single realization redirected thousands of dollars annually toward investments that actually moved me forward rather than merely keeping me comfortable in place. Now, I want to explore another dimension of strategic positioning that the wealthy understand intuitively: how they systematically buy access to rooms and relationships that multiply their opportunities exponentially. If you're starting to see how this capability versus comfort filter could transform your spending decisions, write "capability filter activated" in the comments below. Let me share a revelation that transformed my understanding of wealth creation. The wealthy don't just buy things, they buy placement and position. This insight cuts against everything we've been taught about success and achievement. We've been conditioned to believe that individual effort, talent, and discipline are the primary determinants of financial success. While these qualities matter, they pale in comparison to strategic positioning through proximity to power. This truth becomes evident when you study the journey of virtually any significant success story. Behind the scenes of these overnight successes is almost always a deliberate strategy of positioning, placing themselves in environments where opportunity naturally flows. They understand that who you're surrounded by often matters more than what you know or how hard you work in isolation. Think about this hidden truth. An average performer with excellent positioning will consistently outperform a talented individual with poor positioning. This explains why someone with modest skills but the right connections can achieve in months what might take a highly talented but isolated person years or even decades to accomplish. The acceleration effect of strategic positioning creates what appears to be an unfair advantage, but it's simply the result of deliberate placement. The transformation begins when you shift your focus from simply building skills to strategically positioning yourself where those skills can create maximum impact. This doesn't mean neglecting personal development. It means complementing it with environmental engineering. You systematically invest in gaining access to rooms, communities, and relationships that multiply your opportunities exponentially. What's particularly fascinating about this approach is how it creates compound returns on your social capital. Each strategic placement creates new connections, which open doors to even more exclusive environments. This cascading effect explains why the well-positioned seem to effortlessly attract opportunities while others struggle despite equal or greater talent. Now, here's a critical distinction that separates sophisticated wealth builders from amateur networkers. The wealthy invest specifically in environments where power already circulates, not just where people talk. This insight completely changed my approach to relationship building and community selection. Most networking events and general business gatherings are filled with people at similar levels, exchanging business cards and pleasant conversation. While these connections might feel productive, they rarely create the quantum leaps that come from strategic positioning in environments where real decisions and opportunities flow naturally. The wealthy understand this difference. Intuitively, they'll spend $10,000 on a ticket to a private mastermind where industry leaders make deals rather than attend 10 $1,000 general conferences where people mostly discuss theories. They recognize that being in rooms where power, capital, and opportunity already circulate creates exponential rather than linear returns on their investment. I witnessed this principle transform a friend's business trajectory overnight. After years of attending general industry events with modest results, he invested in joining a highly selective private group with established leaders in his field. The investment seemed steep, $25,000 annually, but within 3 months, a single connection from that group led to a partnership that doubled his company's revenue. What had seemed like an extravagant expense revealed itself as the most strategic investment he'd ever made. Now, I want to explore a real-world example that demonstrates how this principle of strategic positioning can transform perception of value and create returns that seem almost magical to outside observers. If you're beginning to see how strategic positioning might be more important than raw effort in your own journey, write "position over perfection" in the comments below. Let me share a perspective shift that completely transformed how I view investment decisions. What appears to be wasteful extravagance to the financially struggling often represents strategic leverage to the wealthy. Consider this real-world scenario. I witnessed an entrepreneur spent $10,000 to attend an exclusive industry retreat, a price tag that seemed absurdly expensive to his peers. Many called it wasteful, even irresponsible. Why spend $10,000 for a few days of conversations when that money could cover months of operating expenses? 6 months later, the connections made at that event had generated over $500,000 in new business opportunities. What had seemed like reckless spending revealed itself as perhaps the most strategic investment. Impossible, a 50x return that his critics couldn't comprehend. The revelation here isn't about the specific numbers, it's about the fundamentally different lens through which this decision was evaluated. The wealthy don't measure expenditures by their absolute cost, but by their potential leverage. They ask, what doors will this open? What opportunities will this create? What positioning advantage will this provide? This investment perspective transforms seemingly expensive access costs into strategic positioning moves that yield returns many times the initial expenditure. This approach to resource deployment isn't new. It's been practiced by strategic thinkers throughout history. When you study the tactics of history's most successful military and political leaders, you discover a consistent pattern that mirrors wealth creation principles. They systematically bought alliances and positioning advantages before battles even began. Ancient kings didn't just build armies, they invested resources to secure alliances with neighboring territories. Renaissance rulers deployed wealth strategically to ensure loyalty and support before conflicts erupted. They understood that pre-conflict positioning through resource investment created advantages that often determined outcomes before the main contest even began. The battlefield of modern commerce operates on the same fundamental principles. The most successful business builders don't just develop superior products or services, they systematically deploy resources to create strategic advantages through positioning, alliances, and access. They recognize that many competitive outcomes are determined by positioning moves made long before the apparent competition begins. I witnessed this principle unfold dramatically when 2 entrepreneurs launched similar services in the same market. One focused exclusively on product development and operations, keeping costs minimal. The other wasted significant resources on strategic partnerships, industry visibility, and relationship building. When both finally launched, the second entrepreneur's offering was immediately embraced by the market, while the first struggled for traction despite a technically superior product. The positioning investments that had seemed wasteful proved to be the decisive factor. The journey toward financial sovereignty demands recognizing when apparent extravagance actually represents strategic necessity. This doesn't mean reckless spending. It means developing the discernment to identify which investments create disproportionate leverage through positioning advantage. Now I want to explore a sophisticated insight about how the system uses access barriers to filter the opportunity-minded from the scarcity-minded, creating natural selection mechanisms that determine who gains entry to circles of influence. If you're beginning to recognize expenditures in your life that might actually represent strategic positioning opportunities rather than costs, write strategic spending in the comments below. Here's a truth about wealth creation that few people recognize. The system is deliberately designed with access barriers that filter the scarcity-minded from the opportunity-minded. This revelation transformed how I view the high costs associated with valuable networks, communities, and opportunities. These barriers aren't arbitrary. They're sophisticated sorting mechanisms that separate those with investment mindsets from those with consumption mentalities. Think about the exclusive mastermind that costs $25,000 annually, the private conference with a $10,000 ticket price, or the mentorship program requiring a five-figure investment. These price points aren't set simply to generate revenue. They're designed to test your perception of value and your willingness to invest in positioning. They create a natural selection process that ensures only those who truly understand the principles we've been discussing gain entry. Behind the scenes of every valuable network is this filtering mechanism at work. The entry cost, whether financial or otherwise, ensures that the environment remains populated by people who understand investment principles rather than those trapped in scarcity thinking. This creates a powerful concentration effect where opportunity, insight, and strategic alliances naturally circulate among those who have demonstrated their understanding through action. I witnessed this principle unfold when a friend complained about being priced out of an industry conference. He saw the $3,000 ticket as an exclusionary tactic designed to keep people like him on the outside. What he failed to recognize was that this perception itself was the real barrier, not the price tag. Those inside understood the conference wasn't an expense, but a strategic positioning move that would likely return multiples of the investment. This insight reveals a profound truth about access. Every door opens with the right payment, but that payment isn't always made in currency. Sometimes the investment required is courage, preparation, or demonstrated value creation. The wealthy understand that access can be purchased through multiple currencies beyond money, including specialized knowledge, valuable connections, or demonstrated capability. The transformation begins when you shift from seeing barriers as obstacles designed to keep you out to viewing them as filters designed to test your understanding of investment principles. This perspective change completely reframes how you approach opportunities that initially appear expensive or exclusive. I observed this principle at work when two aspiring entrepreneurs approached a prominent industry leader for mentorship. The first offered to pay for the leader's time directly. The second created a detailed analysis of the leader's business, identifying specific growth opportunities, and offered to implement them without upfront payment. The second approach demonstrated value creation rather than consumption and earned the mentorship that money alone couldn't buy. This revelation extends to virtually every domain of advancement. The doors to opportunity, connection, and growth are rarely locked permanently. They simply require the right key. Sometimes that key is financial investment. Sometimes it's demonstrated value. Sometimes it's persistence that separates the casually interested from the truly committed. Now, I want to explore how Neville Goddard's understanding of controlled risk applies to financial growth, how the wealthy use money strategically to strengthen their position before making consequential moves in the marketplace. If you've recognized how your perception of expensive opportunities might actually be the very filter keeping you from advancement, write access mindset in the comments below. Neville Goddard understood something profound about manifestation that applies perfectly to wealth creation. The power of controlled, calculated positioning before decisive action. If we examine his philosophy through the lens of financial strategy, we'd see that what appears as risk to the uninitiated is actually methodical preparation in the eyes of the master. The wealthy embody this principle intuitively, spending strategically to strengthen their position before making consequential moves in the marketplace. This approach to capital deployment resembles a chess grandmaster who doesn't just react to the current board position, but carefully arranges their pieces to create advantage before executing their winning strategy. They're not gambling, they're systematically increasing the probability of success through deliberate positioning moves that might seem mysterious or even reckless to casual observers. I witnessed this revelation transform a friend's business approach completely. Rather than launching his product immediately and hoping for market acceptance, he first invested substantially in building relationships with key industry influencers, understanding customer pain points deeply, and creating positioning content that established his expertise. What looked like wasteful delay to others was actually strategic foundation building that made his eventual launch exponentially more successful than his competitors who rushed to market. The journey toward financial sovereignty reveals this consistent pattern. The most successful wealth creators rarely make isolated moves. Instead, they create carefully orchestrated sequences where each investment builds upon the previous one, creating compound advantages that eventually make success almost inevitable rather than merely possible. This perspective shift transforms how you evaluate risk. What might appear as a significant gamble to outside observers is often a calculated move based on systematic position strengthening that happened behind the scenes. The wealthy understand that true risk isn't measured by the size of the investment, but by the preparation that preceded it. Now let me share what might be the single most important psychological distinction that separates those who build wealth from those who remain financially trapped. The rich move money with intent. The poor move it with emotion. This fundamental difference explains divergent financial outcomes more completely than virtually any other factor. When you observe spending patterns across different financial classes, this truth becomes impossible to ignore. Those struggling financially make purchasing decisions driven primarily by emotional states, buying to feel better when down, spending to impress others when insecure, acquiring status symbols when seeking validation. Their money movements follow emotional currents rather than strategic intention. In stark contrast, the wealthy deploy resources with almost surgical precision and emotional detachment. Each expenditure serves a specific purpose within a broader strategy. This doesn't mean they never enjoy their wealth. It means even their enjoyment spending is intentional rather than reactive or impulsive. They maintain awareness of how each dollar movement either strengthens or weakens their overall position. I tracked my own spending decisions for a month, noting the emotional state behind each purchase, and was shocked by the pattern. Nearly 70% of my non-essential spending correlated directly with specific emotional triggers rather than strategic intention. This single awareness created a transformation in my financial trajectory by highlighting how often my resources were flowing according to emotional weather patterns rather than deliberate planning. The breakthrough happens when you develop the discipline to create space between emotional impulses and financial decisions, to ask, what is the strategic purpose of this expenditure, rather than responding to the immediate emotional need for comfort, status, or distraction. If you're beginning to recognize the difference between emotional spending and strategic deployment in your own financial patterns, write intentional money movement in the comments below. Here's a perspective shift that completely transformed how I view financial decisions. Money never truly disappears when spent. It transforms. Every dollar that leaves your possession isn't lost. It's converted into something else. This revelation fundamentally changes your relationship with spending and investment, replacing the scarcity-driven fear of loss with a more sophisticated understanding of transformation. When you make a purchase, you're not losing money, you're making a transformation decision. The critical question becomes not whether to spend, but what you're choosing to transform your money into. This single insight creates immediate clarity about the true nature of financial choices. Each expenditure represents a conversion of one form of capital into another. The profound question is whether that conversion creates lasting value or temporary satisfaction. The wealthy understand this principle intuitively. They evaluate every financial decision through the lens of transformation quality. Am I converting this money into something that creates power, growth, and freedom? Or am I transforming it into weakness, distraction, and dependence? This single distinction explains why people with identical incomes can create dramatically different financial trajectories over time. I observed this principle dramatically with two professionals earning similar six-figure salaries. The first systematically transformed her income into assets, capabilities, and strategic relationships. The second converted his earnings primarily into lifestyle upgrades, entertainment, and status symbols. A decade later, the first had created financial independence, while the second remained dependent on his monthly paycheck, despite earning millions over that period. Same income, radically different transformation decisions. The journey toward financial sovereignty demands developing almost instinctive discernment about transformation quality. You begin recognizing that certain conversions, like transforming money into knowledge, systems, or productive assets, create expanding spirals of opportunity. Other conversions, like transforming money into depreciating possessions or fleeting experiences, create diminishing returns and ongoing financial pressure. Now let me share perhaps the most powerful principle of wealth acceleration: leverage. This concept represents the ultimate financial multiplier, allowing one person to control the efforts of 1,000. Leverage explains how certain individuals create exponential results, while others remain trapped in linear growth patterns despite equal or greater effort. The wealthy understand that human capacity has inherent limitations. There are only so many hours you can work, only so much you can personally produce. True wealth explosion happens when you transcend these limitations through leverage, creating systems where your initial input generates multiplied output through other people, technology, or capital. This leverage principle manifests across virtually every wealth creation journey. It appears as hiring teams that multiply your productive capacity, creating systems that generate results while you sleep, building technologies that scale your impact beyond your personal reach, or deploying capital that works continuously on your behalf. The hidden truth about leverage is that it always requires investment up front. This creates a filtering mechanism that separates those who understand transformation from those trapped in consumption thinking. The initial cost of creating leverage, whether hiring your first team member, building your first system, or deploying your first investment capital, often appears prohibitive to the consumption-minded while representing obvious value to the transformation-minded. If this perspective on money as transformation rather than loss has created a shift in your thinking, write "transform, don't spend" in the comments below. You know, I've shared some powerful concepts about wealth creation today, ideas that run counter to everything most of us have been taught. But understanding these principles is just the beginning of the journey. The real transformation happens when you begin applying these insights deliberately in your daily financial decisions. Start by examining your relationship with money right now. Are you holding it captive, afraid to deploy it strategically? Are your spending patterns driven by emotional impulses rather than calculated positioning? Are you investing primarily in comfort and appearance rather than capability and leverage? This isn't about making dramatic overnight changes that feel uncomfortable or unsustainable. It's about gradually shifting your money consciousness, becoming more deliberate about the transformation choices you make with each dollar that flows through your hands. Even small adjustments in your deployment strategy can create compounding advantages over time. Remember what we discussed about Neville Goddard's understanding of opportunity, how it ripens briefly before inevitably decaying if left ungrasped. The same applies to the insights you've gained today. This moment of clarity and motivation represents a window of possibility that won't remain open indefinitely. The question becomes, will you act on this understanding while the energy is fresh? I create these videos because I genuinely believe that financial freedom isn't just about accumulating wealth. It's about developing the mindset that naturally attracts and multiplies resources. It's about becoming the kind of person who instinctively makes decisions that strengthen rather than weaken your position. My mission is to share these principles with as many people as possible who are ready to transcend conventional financial wisdom. If you found value in today's message, I'd appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. This channel is dedicated to these transformation principles, not just theoretical concepts, but practical applications that create real-world results. Each week, I share insights that build upon one another, creating a comprehensive framework for financial sovereignty. I'd love to know if these ideas resonated with you. If you watched all the way through and feel like you've had a perspective shift about money deployment, write "money in motion" in the comments below. Your engagement helps more people discover these principles, creating a community of strategic thinkers who understand wealth creation at a deeper level. And if this content provided genuine value, a simple like on this video helps tremendously in reaching others who might benefit from these same insights. There's a video right here that explores the next critical principle in this wealth creation framework: how to build systems that create passive income while you sleep. Click and continue with me there as we dive deeper into creating true financial leverage that frees you from the limitations of trading time for money. The principles connect directly to what we've discussed today, creating an even more powerful understanding of strategic positioning and resource multiplication. Until next time, remember, money only multiplies when it moves with intention.